Hello there and welcome back to the channel. In this video, let's do a banner review of Oathbound Marie from the new Dragon Quest collab. And then we'll also do a first look at Rion and Sarafa, but not as in-depth. I like to keep the channel spoiler free, so they haven't revealed all of the weapons and stuff like that. So I'll be doing a video on them, but they did reveal the kit, so we can look at that, which is nice because it allows us to plan throughout the month instead of having to wait and have there be mystery and then the single banner that you might have wanted is gone. So that was nice of them. In any case, let's get straight into this. So Marie is coming in as another top tier DPS units with the updated 11,000 something attack. The HP is a little low compared to some of the recent power crept units, and defense kind of where they're all sitting over 6,000. Okay, the character skill. So it is a 5 hits, so that's nice. And 250 is pretty high. It's not quite as high as some others, but we get an additional multiplier with lights and then another 60 for bold vigor. And that's dynamic, so you have to have 100% HP to get that max 60%. 60% is a ton. Of course, that's just on the character skill, so it's going to be one of these character skills where you got the condition met at full HP, you're going to be capping very easily. But look at this. She brings utility as well, and there's a light crush. 30-second light crush on her character skill. That's going to be awesome. So you'll have some extra light crush active throughout the knockdown if that's where you're using her. With that HP, she's not going to be quite as good as some of the other attackers in Fateboard. And then, as we've seen, any standalone DPS unit can be very valuable in Arena these days. And if you saw my last video, I demonstrated what that new 30% haste looks like and how it can compare in various situations. So make sure you check that video out. All right, now we have the regular Vigor passive, which is, it's kind of a weird one, and we've had this as like a pretty standard thing for a long time now. But this point came up. It inflates her attack stat, so it's like, do you need the passive? Or you could have just dialed the base stat to where you wanted it, So it kind of like having a Vigor passive kind of wastes a passive, but it's not bad news because basically almost every one of our awesome DPS units has this. Okay, the second one is a drive, 100%. Attack stats to light weapons. That's pretty good. That can be pretty effective. The bummer here is that this additional bold vigor, 30% static, so just above 70, you don't have to be max. It's locked behind Awakening 3, and that's a big bummer. You're really gonna have to pull out the wallet to go for that. Debris, a rush debris. Now, rush has never been very desirable. I don't know if this behaves any differently from a regular rush passive. I assume it would, so I would not go chasing that. I was told that she released and there were no karma effects at first. It looks like they fixed it. Let's take a look. All of the standard stuff here. I really like the crit rate and damage combo myself. All right, we do have Lucid Haste 8% as an option. Again, I talked about this in my last video. And then the damage, the same damage. Conditional multipliers there, which are always the best to go for. This can make your life really easy in Subjugation though, looping your character skill, so up to you. All right, Karma 3 gives us the usual. We have usually it's damage reduction and mastery are the best options, but now, of course, we have this new busted 30%. If like 8 was like felt balanced, like, a week ago, like 30. There it is. Of course, I talk about that in my previous video. So if you're in need of a light DPS, go for it. I'm more than taken care of in that department. And in fact, in general, I'm just not really going after any PvE DPS units myself. My account is pretty rounded out, but if you're lacking, you might consider her. And look, her costume looks really cool too. Maybe you're a Dragon Quest fan and you came to the game for that. Welcome. If so, good news is that overall this banner with the 3 units will give you a great start to the game. It gives you great coverage for what you need. In this case, a DPS that can go beyond just being locked to light, because really it's more about her bold vigor condition. And, you know, well, we'll look at the others, but yeah, Rion, we're going to have a healer, and then Sarafa, provoke tank. So, yeah, a good way for a new player to get started by focusing on this. And of course, again, if you came because you're a Dragon Quest fan, then bonus to you, you get to pull these new units with the themed costumes, and then you have a great, you know, spread to start the game with. All right, let's take a look at her weapon. For a one-hand sword, the attack value is looking good. HP is pretty high too. Now this skill is 26 seconds, and that's pretty long, but it's a very powerful skill. It's only 90, but they make up for it with the, you know, even more bold vigor, and 60 is extremely high. So that is a skill that's going to be doing tons of damage. And then skill 2 here, 4 hit, but, you know, juiced up multiplier, 110. And if you're using it on a one-hand sword user, you get a light buff, kind of like an EX weapon. 23 seconds, so you just have the longer skill here. It might not be that big of a deal, but sometimes that can really jam up your comboing and being able to fit in between boss actions. Of course, in subjugation, it might not be that big of a deal, especially if you're still needing a skill to trigger the knockdown, and then, you know, you're using main hand, so you have your character skill, the big nuke, which is probably gonna cap. That's very powerful. That's really gonna boost your score. And then needing auto attacks to recharge the character skill. And of course, Karma makes that easier, or pairing her with the right units, you know, either allowing the skills to cool down or whatever. Okay, so you should pull her if you're lacking DPS at this point. Otherwise, pretty easy skip unless you're a huge Marie fan. And there's nothing wrong with pulling for your favorites. If you love Marie, go for it. All right, let's head over to Reddit, where Belgo has summed up the images that were released from the JP Twitter. And we can look at all of the rest of the units and their kits. Cool. So, thank you, Belgo, by the way. All right, here's Sarafa. This was the image that was shared, and then the translation. So she does have an attack break. 45 seconds, and that's a good length, and enters provoke. This is usable at start, so she's yet another provoke tank, arena viable provoke tank. Character skill usable at start. It's only been 2 months since Lavanya, and of course I talked about that a little bit in my last video, but meant to circle back to it here. So I talked about how Lavanya's gimmick is kind of dead in the water because of this new cooldown gimmick that happened. And now all of a sudden we have a replacement here. One, I think they introduced her to, like, I don't know why at this point, since they gave everyone the haste, but to deter us from using Abyss Sarafa, which created this whole mess in the first place. So that we'll want to use her instead. But yeah, it's kind of soon. So that because everyone can cool down like that, Lavanya's counter gimmick is kind of like, you know, even more situational, maybe borderline useless. And then, of course, the rest of his kit was kind of sacrificed for that gimmick. So he doesn't have the debuffs that Udil has, etc. Goes down a little bit easier, even though he's got more HP. So Sarafa comes in with a gimmick of Dauntless, and I thought that's what we might see from Lavanya before he released, but nope. Now, I do need to comment on this 15-second deal. 15 seconds in game time is very short. It does not feel very long, and the best way to get a feel of what 15 seconds feels like is the element buff on skill 1 of EX weapons. So there have been cases where, like, let's say I'm doing a Fateboard run, and I go to do a combo, and I have 2 DPS units, and on the first one, I go skill 1, skill 2, and the next one I go skill 1, skill 2. And that, you know, once the combo gets started, this character gets their character skill charged. So I pop it. I want a big combo, right? It's not ideal. And why it's not ideal, I'm about to explain. Character 1 does EX skill 1, gets the buff, does skill 2. Character 2, skill 1, skill 2. By the time it gets back to that character skill, that element buff has already worn off. So I could be wrong because I haven't played, she's not out yet, I haven't played with her and I haven't felt this. But typically, I feel like 15 seconds is about the time of 3 weapon skills. And of course, that can change whether you have the, you know, proficient weapon or not in your main. A non-proficient weapon is going to be a way faster animation, especially if it's a gun, etc. So yeah, this could go 4 skills. And for her usage in Arena, you're going to want to pop this right before the enemy skills go off. And then the question is, like, how many of these skills are you going to take? Well, if she's paired with Yuri and's got some damage reduction, maybe a recovery gimmick, then those first few skills are going to be chewing away the damage reduction. Maybe one gets snagged on the recovery, and then maybe another one takes her down or could have killed her, and that's where the Dauntless kicks in. But guess what? The Dauntless could already be wearing off by the next skill. And usually this is why I haven't really liked using Dauntless in the past, is that, cool, it's cool, I can't die, yay. And then usually it's with these characters that have a heal attached to it. And now, cool, I didn't die, but now guess what? I'm next to death. The heals are gone. You know, my healer's character skill needs to totally recharge. Boss has got another round of skills coming at me, and then I always die. So besides the amazing Dauntless looping people have done with Fest Noel, Dauntless hasn't really worked out that well so far. And in Arena, I'm not so sure about this, because even if she does benefit from the Dauntless, it's not going to matter too much in the first few skills that come, unless maybe it eats an auto attack, or, still, even if she survives because of the Dauntless and there's 3 more skills coming, well, you better have your teammates ready to cool down too, right? The one thing that does synergize with that is that she has, if you get her Awakening 3, she has a Valiance passive. So it's not very common for these Provoke tanks to have party offensive support. There's always like some kind of defensive support, right? So she could be interesting on hybrids, but I haven't felt this Dauntless yet. And in Arena, I don't think it's going to be that great. I do want to pull her just so I have that as an option, though. But I have a feeling the Dauntless just isn't going to matter for 15 seconds. All right, so that's what I think about her. With all of that in mind, I think that she could possibly be a very interesting PvE Provoke tank. So, like, maybe used in Fateboard or something like that. Okay, and of course, when her actual banner comes out, I'll give a more in-depth review when we have the weapon and can look at her karma slots and everything. All right, Rion. I really like this costume and design. Looking very cool. Oh, sorry, I left this out. She comes with a busted debris, 40% liquid pursuit. That's very strong. So if you want to go super hard, you could have a very powerful debris there. Okay, sorry, back to Rion here. So when we saw the first little teaser, a lot of us predicted that we'd finally get a wind gimmick healer similar to Christmas Gale or Celeb F66X. And that's exactly what he is. So just like the two of them, he has 50% regen here, 10% over 5 turns, and that's very powerful, very effective. It also has a status ailment cleanse. So those are very, they come in handy. The cleanses are very nice. So very similar to Bloody F66X already. Of course, more updated. Then when using wind, so here's the gimmick. Kind of like how, you know, Gale and F66X have. It's a revive. And we saw with Hina that it's kind of a bummer. The revive, it can be cool, and maybe in arena you get sniped and he's wind, so there aren't many fire snipers out there. He, you know, does have a lot of HP, so he's likely, you know, when paired with Yuri, he's likely to survive a snipe, and so maybe people aren't going to be targeting him. So if someone else does get sniped and he can use this at the start of battle, then he revives in arena. Now that could be interesting. And at first I was thinking, yes, I want to go for Rion. That's cool. It's always good to go for these gimmick healers, you know? They're very powerful, very effective in PvE. But when I thought about it, Gale, you know, needs to be using water, but she gets the damage reduction. So she has an additional survivability gimmick on her heal. And then F66X has an attack break to all enemies when she's using any elements. So, you know, F66X can be even better in off elements, but the two of them, in my opinion, are still the S tier healers, and Rion, for me, comes up a little short compared to them. Thought about it, and I wouldn't mind grabbing him A0 now, but I will not be pulling hard for him. Okay, so yeah, resilience, 30%, that's really nice. Even more if you're coming with wind weapons. And then this is cool. If you get A3, he's got some damage reduction to the party, and that's just like what we saw with Summer Yuri, which was game breaking. Of course, hers is 50. And yeah, so not quite as much, but combined with her, it'll definitely stack. But you have to get that A3. You have to go in hard, either like blow your several months savings or whale for it, or get extremely lucky, and you cannot guarantee that. So out of the three, I think I'll be going for Sarafa, but maybe not pulling that hard. I might just kind of YOLO on all three and just try to get one copy. I'm not quite sure. But again, you know, when this banner releases, I will do another video more in depth where we can look at the weapon and look at everything. All right, so any new players coming, welcome, and I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you enjoy this game and enjoy your Dragon Quest themed units. And for everyone else, good luck in your pulls. I hope you get everything you want. That's going to be it for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.